Welcome to the broadcast, my dear fruity ones. Well, that Doria Ragland, she's gone from rags to riches and she's having a wonderful gay old summer, isn't she? A wonderful gay old time. That reclusive, shy, bashful Doria Ragland is the belle of the ball. She is highfalutin and shooting high. From Pesos to Bezos. One could say. We'll look at that in a moment. And we will look at some other royal goings on. But for those of you who have turned up for Tip Jar Corner, you can skip ahead if you wish. There is a Tip Jar Corner in this broadcast, and I'll put the timestamp in the description box. But for those of you who want to stick around for a little gossip beforehand, well, let's start with something a little bit more regal, which is, of course, the gathering at Balmoral going on today. And yesterday, in the grounds of Balmoral Castle, the King, accompanied by the Queen, presented a new colour or regimental flag to the Royal Guard. This balloter colour, as it's known, is a ceremonial colour used by the Royal Guard, and they are the soldiers who guard Balmoral Castle whilst the monarch is in residence in the summer months. And the new colour marks the King's new reign. Lovely, isn't it? Just a wonderful sight, a wonderful vision, and a wonderful ceremonial. He also made a surprise appearance at the Highland Games, with his equerry at his side, of course. Our King Cosy Socks looked absolutely in his element, don't you think? And there was so much gorgeous tartan on display. Isn't that a wonderful spread you see there? Aren't the colours beautiful together? And don't they all just shine with Scottish beauty on that drizzly day, my perfect kind of weather, as you know, my dears. A lovely, drizzly Scottish day up in the Highlands. Wonderful. And at church today, the royals were seen all gathering together, all coming together for the Balmoral brief and all kinds of wonderful chats. At leisure, William drove his uncle, Uncle Andy. Yes, Andrew York was there, front seat, with Catherine to the rear. And look, lovely Lady Susan, smiling and beguiling in garnet. She seems to get younger, doesn't she, as she progresses through the winter season. She seems to be looking more youthful and radiant with each appearance. Maybe she is taking to the celebrity life after all these years in obscurity. No one would have been noticing Lady Susan, would they? But now she takes pride of place, no thanks to Ngozi Forlorn and the machinations of Marlene Headley, or however you want to dress that up, my dear. And Edward, the Duke of Edinburgh, was smiling as he was driving along in glee with Sir Timothy Lawrence and the gals in the back, our dear Duchess of Edinburgh Sophie and the Princess Royal, who is always incredibly royal. And the Regiment of Scotland put on a wonderful display with a guard of honour. But Queen of the Sunday headlines goes to one Doria Ragland. Isn't that a turn-up for the books? At the TIA 5th Anniversary Soiree. TIA, standing for This Is About Humanity, a non-profit organisation dedicated to raising awareness about separated and reunited families and children at the US-Mexico border. Well, look out for a hut on the edge of a cliff with a big man sitting inside of it called Thomas looking out towards the sea, my dear. And see what luck you have reuniting that separated family. Doria was holding court with the Kardashians. Kris Jenner and Kimogli Kardashian were at pains to cuddle up and cozy up next to Doria. They got a new yoga teacher or something? They got a new yoga teacher in Doria? Everybody loves Doria, don't they, as Harry tells us. That woman gets in where oil don't, doesn't she? She is one of those characters that manages to get everybody clamouring to make sure that she is absolutely fine and absolutely dandy, whether it is Charles and Camilla being so exceptionally chivalrous, accompanying her daughter down the aisle in the father's absence, making and taking great pains to make sure that Doria felt looked after and chaperoned at the wedding, as future king and queen, making sure that she was looked after. And as we know, they were repaid for all their kindnesses and sweetness by taking part in that tawdry cabaret on Netflix, otherwise known as Harry and Meghan. That nonsense on stilts, that nonsense on screen. She took part in that. So she's found her ilk, she's found her kind, reality TV stars and climbers. Very successful ones, of course, in the form of the Kardashians, if one considers that form of entrepreneurship and merchandising as a spiritually desirable form of success. That is. But each to their own, and if they want to convince themselves that throwing these vulgar soirees is in some way benefiting the immigrant masses, then all kudos to them, my dear. I'm only surprised that the Grand Ambassadoress of Argentina, otherwise known as Rachel Evita Meghan Markle, wasn't in attendance to show her descomisados that she's still down with the kids, as she drapes herself in diamonds and faux fur. Doria is 66 years old. I've got to say, I think she looks very youthful for 66 years old and compares very favourably to ladies of her age. I think she gives off a youthful glow and a youthful appearance. Her retro print dress was in contrast to everybody else there, who was very dressed up. She wore 3 silver coins around her neck. Presumably that's from Henry's collection of 30 pieces of silver. So he's down to 27 now, because Doria snatched 3 of those coins of betrayal away from him, but he's still got his bangles and beads, hasn't he? Which he incidentally was wearing out to the gym. He likes to go to the gymnasium. He was photographed in Santa Barbara. And a cap as well. So keep working out, Henry. Keep working out your stress and strains. Anything to escape the house for a little short while, isn't it? Anything to escape the kids and the wife just for a gentle, idle hour away. One, keep pumping, my dears. The trouble is, my dear, even if he gets very strong and buff in the torso, he's got the legs are more, he's got those Kermit legs. So he's got to have to be careful of getting any more out of proportion. But good luck to him. I don't have anything against Kris Jenner or Kim Kardashian. I actually rather like what I know of them, although I've never ever watched an episode of At Home with the Kardashians. I've just seen a few interviews. I especially like Kim. I think she comes across as a very, very nice woman, but I thought that she looked absolutely horrid. I thought she looked horrible with that fringe, that bang affair, but we all have the odd bad day, don't we? She looked awful, dreadful. And Kris Jenner looked like Liza Minnelli in drag. Well, Liza Minnelli is always in drag, but you know, drag on drag, I suppose you could say, my dear. Apparently the association is because Archewell organised a holiday gifting for over 30 families back in December. Just 30. But what was it that tempted Dame Ragland to riches out of the enclave for this party? Was it the champagne and canapes? Or was it the other guests? The other guests of influence, for example, Jeff Bezos. Now listen, my dears, I understand that I'm being a little bit acidic. I'm in that kind of mood. I understand that it was probably a fun party, a little bit of gaiety for a good cause, apparently, and might have been really rather good fun with some nice people there. But the reason I expressed my distaste is merely because of the vulgarity of the idea that you would swap, willingly exchange and forego an association with absolute royalty and all the machinations of it, including everything that it does charitably and in regards to philanthropy and altruism on a much less vulgar, tawdry scale. For this Hollywood environment of the celebrity and the reality junkie and the social media whatnots, isn't it vulgar? But that's what you get when you want to transmute from a Duchess of the United Kingdom and all her realms to an Instagrammer. An Instagrammer. Isn't it shocking? Well, we'll look at that in a moment, but just as a palate cleanser, I would like to mention somebody very special to me in the public eye, an entertainer that some of you will know, and who died in June. And the death went completely over my head. I didn't hear about it. I didn't know about it. Astrud Gilberto. And I wanted to mention her to pay my little tribute, but also to introduce you to her if you've never heard of Astrud Gilberto and her wonderful music. The Brazilian superstar who came to attention in the mid-60s, I guess, with the girl from Ipanema, although that isn't really one of my favourites. A lot of her other tunes mean a lot more to me. Although it is a fabulous tune, I believe it's one of the most performed and played tunes in the world, her version of The Girl from Ipanema, although if rumours are to be believed, she only ever made $160 out of it, which was her recording fee. I think she had problems in her career. But it was only yesterday or the day before when I put on a bit of Astrud, and I happened to think, I'll just Google her to see what she's up to, because she hasn't played live for decades, and it was one of my ambitions to always see her live. And even though she was 83 years old when she died this year, I always wanted to keep an eye out just in case some exclusive date came up or she was going to make some random return, which was always unlikely because she was rather reclusive in that respect. But it was only then that I realised and saw that she had died. I was stunned, absolutely stunned. I can't believe it did make some of the headlines, but I missed them. Totally missed them. She died on the 5th of June 2023. She was introduced to me by a friend as I was coming up in my late teens, I think, and it became a soundtrack to our life initially and then to my life personally. I have one tape cassette with a collection of her greatest hits on that my friend made for me at the time when I discovered her. And that tape has followed me everywhere, under all circumstances. It's played when in times of joy, in times of sadness, melancholy. It seems to suit everything. I've had a million glittering nights under the stars, lots of them abroad. I remember hot nights in Almeria, in Spain, in Rotterdam, The Hague, in the Netherlands, but all over the world. Glittering, balmy, hot nights with them in the summer, cosy winter and autumnal nights with the same songs. They're so versatile throughout all seasons. They can be there as a big regal presence in your life, or just tinkling away in the background. Jazzy, smoky, uplifting, light, profound. So many tipsy nights, so many silly nights, dancing to that music with friends and lovers and making love to that music as well. And Astrud had the gift of a natural, unaffected timbre to her voice, a natural rhythm. Her phrasing was exquisite and all entirely natural. Her delivery trumped any form of technical expertise, if you will, in that sort of film, in that sort of field. She was just an absolute natural, and she was beguiling. She had a purity and a shyness, or at least appeared that way. She was such a mystery. I don't know how she really was, but she appeared shy, she appeared reluctant, but ultimately generous with her gift. I will link to one song under the video, but it would be wonderful if you did your own research. There's so much on YouTube about her, but one of my favourite songs of hers is Only Trust Your Heart. Sometimes she would sing in English, sometimes in her own language, but this one is English, and it's not the best rendition of Only Trust Your Heart that I've included, but I wanted just to include that one because it's a short performance and you actually get to see her and you can see some of her charm, which is this sort of natural reserve that she has, almost like a little girl in a way, which is very charming. But there are better versions of it out there, but you can go on your own journey. If you fall in love with her as I did, then she will accompany you throughout your whole entire life. So I did want to mention my darling Astrud, an angel of my life, will always be with me as long as I live. Thank you, Astrud. The newspapers are saying, yet again, that Meghan's relaunch is imminent and that she is going to be making millions of dollars per post on social media, which is something I've been telling you for months. People don't want to hear it, but I tell you the truth. She will be making millions and squillions and trillions. That's just the way it goes, and good luck to her. A source close to her team is said to have confirmed that Instagram with just Meghan, the Meghan handle, which has always been widely rumoured as being Meghan's, is rumoured as saying, yes, that's her. Expect an announcement very soon. She's coming back. And nothing's been posted on there yet, but some of her friends are following that account, including Mandana Dayani, whoever the hell that is. Oh, she was the president of Archewell until the end of 22. She is about to earn sums that she could only ever dream of, but isn't it satisfying to know that she is only able to merge herself in that direction and accumulate what she is about to accumulate? because she's associated with the British royal family. Lest we forget, that is the only reason. And I am certainly a person who has always given her props for managing to attain a career, as she did when she was in Suits. She had a well-paid job and she got it on her own merit, whatever that merit is, whether that's ambition, a modicum of acting talent, whatever you want to call it. She achieved that. I will never take that away from her. But there was a limit to how far that talent could take her. And she certainly wouldn't have the potential platform that she has now, especially in her early 40s, to do all this merching, which we know that she did on the back of all that besmirching. No matter how much she might try and convince herself that it's all down to her and her natural charm and charisma and poise. No, my dear, no. It is all down to your association with royalty. And why do you think she was so plumb keen to get that second date in the bag with Harry before she jetted off? Why do you think she was so plumb keen for that second date to seal the deal and seal her fate? The second date with the second son, no doubt second, third, fourth and fifth base. Harry went into some detail, didn't he, about their first hotel stay together, but I can't remember the details of it. I don't want to think about their grimy encounters in hotels. How sordid. How sordid. Well, she needs to bring honey to the hive, doesn't she? And that's what she's going to be doing. And I'm quite sure that they are going to dress up all of these merchandising spectacles as if they are doing something altruistic, as if they are working with ethical, authentic, genuine, kind brands. Be kind, be kind. Never trust anyone that tells you to be kind. Ugh, so nauseating. Let's turn to something altogether more dignified, shall we? Off we go, my dears. Let's escape to Tip Jar Corner. Welcome to Tip Jar Corner, my dears, and thank you very kindly if you sent a tip my way over the last couple of weeks. It's very kind of you. I'll mainly be showing you some trinkets and some wardrobe pieces today. No books today, I'm afraid, my dear. I haven't had time to flick through a book in the past week. I've been incredibly busy. I'll try for some books next time, but this little trinket was a lovely little find. Only £3 it was, and I absolutely love the colour of it. That's what struck me. It's a green glass pendant. And it's rather chartreusey, isn't it, in tone? Chartreuse, mid-greens. I'm very much in love with those mid-tone greens at the moment. And it's got a glittering gold design within the leaf shape that catches the light. Beautifully glittery there. And it's on strings of tiny metallic beads that are encrusted with beads and stones and splinters of ambers and browns, those kind of colours. And they really do glow like beautifully coppery, orangey embers under a flame. Lovely. This rainbow stone headband is a pure delight with a charming iridescent crystal, the star of the show, on a bed of pearls and crystals and ribbony blooms in yellows, peaches and creams, but the effect is mainly yellow. And it was a bit disappointing because that beautifully rainbow coloured stone was hidden from view when I put it on. It was facing the ceiling. None of you could see it, so I adorned the front of it with the little bar brooch that I showed you in a previous Tip Jar Corner, and I asked what it's called, and one of you said you thought it was a bar brooch. So it was that bar shape at the front that went very well with the yellow look that I wore, and I managed to pair it with a wonderful silk shirt, and I picked up that silk shirt, which was yellow with animal print designs, with zebras, with big cats. You know the one, safari themed, beautifully comfortable, luxurious, and it was one of several that I picked up from a charity shop. And I think I've got 3 or 4 of these silk shirts. I don't know where they came from, but there are a couple of shirts there that were exactly the same design, 2 or 3 actually, so I get the feeling that it wasn't from one person who donated seconds, but perhaps from an old warehouse or dead stock, because they all strike me as being completely and utterly new. Fabulous condition, a range of prices, One of them was about £9, the cheapest. The most expensive was about 30, which was quite a lot, £30. But I looked up the make. Frank Foster, who is very famous, I'd never heard of, admittedly, but very famous, world-renowned, and most of Frank Foster's silk shirts go for about £175, or did originally. So whether I picked up for £9 or £30, it was a fabulous bargain, a fabulous steal, and of course the money goes to charity anyway, and will eventually be redonated to charity, although I expect I'll get a lot of wear out of those silk shirts because they are perfect for the hotter months. They deserve a bit of re-wearing, and they're just fabulously comfortable and soft. Really good finds. This one I think will be wonderful for the fall or the early fall, with rich purples, scarlets and golds, wonderful colours to go together, aren't they? This is the one that was the most expensive for some reason out of all the designs, £30. But I thought it was very elegant and rather fabulous. And then there was this one, which I'll call the watercolour spring florals. This one was £9.50. Mellow greens, corally kind of yellowy pinks and dusky blues. Lovely combination there. And the workmanship and the simple quality on all of these pieces is really sublime, and you can really feel it, the care that went into it. And I looked up Frank Foster, and it was quite an education to hear about his life. And I'll leave a link to an article I found about him below as well. It won't really entertain that many of you, but especially for those of you that love London or have lived in London, I found it interesting to hear about his life from various articles, but in particular that one. And I feel a little bit ashamed that I didn't know about him, or I don't remember hearing about him, but he had a shop or worked out of London since 1958 with his wife Mary, and he was known as a conjurer of cotton and silk. And this interview had him at 93 years old in 2015, and apparently he died soon after that interview, so I think when he was 93. And his real name was Lionel Frank, and his parents were Russian Jewish emigrants who arrived in England fleeing the terrors of Russia and of Europe, and set up shop after a very hard sort of beginning and facing a lot of troubles and strife. Frank Foster became a very successful entrepreneur. He became the name in shirts and cottons and silks, the name. It would be quicker to name the style icons and stars and celebrities that he didn't clothe rather than the ones that he did, because he clothed everybody that was everybody. And famously his shirts were used in all of the James Bonds and worn by the Beatles and in virtually every movie of note from the 60s. He dressed royalty. He was just the epitome of elegant masculinity, style and grace. And he sounds like somebody that was really worth knowing about. That's what's so fun about Tip Jar Corner and my little sojourns to the charity shops and the vintage stores, because they always throw up interesting stories to learn. I would never have known about this Frank Foster if I'd never picked up this collection of silk shirts. I discovered a poem written about Frank Foster, and I will read it at the very end of this broadcast. And another item I picked up this week was this blazer. It's not quite tartan, of course, it's check, but I thought it went a little bit with the Balmoral theme, and I loved the colours. I love bright primaries together for some reason. I haven't worn checks for a very long time, I have to say, but I'm really enjoying wearing it and pairing it with a new sort of headband, which almost passes for a tiara, doesn't it? But yes, I'm rather emerald today, I must say. And this jacket had a label in it, or has a label, saying Liz Sport, which I hadn't seen before, but I gave it a Google and it threw up the same jacket, which is described as a vintage 90s piece, Liz Claiborne Sport, oversized plaid blazer. And I see this going online, or it was going online second-hand for about £35, that kind of thing. Well, I picked this up for £4.50, not bad for a blazer, is it? And it had the shoulder pads stuffed into the pockets, which you affix inside with Velcro. So that was another bargain, and yet another bargain that I picked up was by Nasty Gal. Nasty Gal, what fun. This is a sequined bolero, and I haven't really bedazzled with many sequins lately, have I? I used to wear quite a lot, but I go through phases here on the broadcast. But I do love wearing sequins, and I like this one. It's made up of dusky pink and silver sequins, and originally, again, this is brand new that I found in a charity shop. Originally it was £79, then it was reduced to £31, then it was reduced again to £15.80, and I got them to agree to chuck it in with my load for a £5. That's what happens when you get to know all the shop assistants. And because I was, I'd been convinced to pick up all the silk shirts and pay the prices they were asking. So, I felt confident to say, well, can you chuck that one in for a £5, please? And they know that I'm a good and regular customer. So they did oblige, because it had been sitting on the shelf. But I was very pleased with that, and I can bring you a bit of bling, 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 a bit of sequin disco moment coming up, can't I? So I will love you and leave you, my dears. I've got to trot off. Multitasking is not one of my natural attributes. It's really not, but I am so busy at the moment that I am juggling so many different balls. So many different balls in so many ways, my dear. But I run ragged. Not in a terrible way, just in a way that could be overwhelming if I was to allow it to. But I'm not going to allow it to, because I stay royal. So in that spirit, I urge you to stay royal, my dear, and channel the royal spirit. And I thank you very much for your company. And again, I thank anybody who sent a tip my way. It always brings a smile to my face, and I really do appreciate it. And I appreciate your company and your juicy comments and your goodwill. I'll catch up with you all next week, my dear, because it's Sunday, isn't it? I'm losing my days, yeah. So see you next week. Take care, my dears, and toodle pip. Ta-ra! At first I went to Turnbull's, but disaster waited there. Then to Paris for a Charvet, Place Vendôme, expensive square. Rome's Carolo Palazzi seemed like some designer's joke, while New York's The Custom Shirt Shop didn't fit across the yoke. Harvey Hudson, Hawes and Curtis, New and Lingwood, all impostors. For the finest shirts in all the world are in Pall Mall. Frank Foster's.